about the story and what happens, which is great, but they're also looking that you're analyzing it as text, like not just as a story. Like some of the stuff that we said about the pickle passage from last time is the one I'm talking about. Some of the stuff we said was about like the actions that took place between the guys, but that could have been in a movie, it could have been in a radio drama, like it could have been in a play, all of these different like formats. And you want to make sure to say something about the actual textual form of the passage. So it uses this word and this word has these connotations, and that's what makes, you know, the tone come through clear or whatever. You want to make sure that you're saying specific things about the form. So we're going to do that here. Oh, and Abby's been in here all along. All right, let's start with the page break where it just says, "You are a silly little boy." Okay, "You are a silly little boy," said the Lord of the Flies, "just an ignorant, silly little boy." Simon moved his swollen tongue but said nothing. "Don't you agree?" said the Lord of the Flies. "Aren't you just a silly little boy?" Simon answered him in the same silent voice. "Well then," said the Lord of the Flies, "you'd better run off and play with the others. They think you're batty. You don't want Ralph to think you're batty, do you? You like Ralph a lot, don't you? And Piggy and Jack?" Simon's head was tilted slightly up. His eyes could not break away, and the Lord of the Flies hung in space between him. So here is this pig's head, right? That is like sitting there undulating with flies in front of him. And he seems to be having this like communion with this thing. And this is what I mean, like it feels a little bit supernatural, like why has it started to talk? But I think rather than thinking of it supernaturally, maybe we should just think of it symbolically. What is the Lord of the Flies supposed to represent? We actually talked about this with Emily Dickinson at the very beginning of the year, what the Lord of the Flies means. Yeah.
It kind of represents like their dark nature, because later it talks about like we're gonna have fun on this island, and like he's not allowed to like go back and tell the preacher.
Yeah, so it's like I'm going to appeal to your id, to go back to our discussion of last time. Like I'm going to appeal to the id, and we're going to like do whatever we want to do. So it could be this like instinctual nature inside humanity, what existed before any sort of like society came in and like taught us how to behave correctly. You know, it's like appealing to, it's like temptation then. So in, you know, biblical sense, who tempts you?
Satan.
It's Satan. Yeah. So Lord of the Flies is a term that we have used. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it's a term that has been used for Satan in the past. So yeah, so it's like specifically like alluding to Satan there. To the devil, right? And it says, "Well then," said the Lord of the Flies, "you'd better run off and play with the others. They think you're batty. You don't want Ralph to think you're batty, do you? You like Ralph a lot, don't you? And Piggy and Jack." So if we're talking about like the Lord of the Flies being this like source of temptation, like give in, be like the other boys and so on, how is he doing that with like, how is he appealing to group dynamics to tempt?
He doesn't want to be ostracized like they.
Right. So it's like maybe Simon's like inner nature is not actually so violent. Maybe he doesn't actually want to go throw rocks and you know, I don't know, cunt pigs and all of this, but it's like you don't want them to think you're crazy, right? So go on and be like the other boys. So in some ways, like the book is also commenting on how, and this is true in the chanting sections as well. It's like it's commenting on how you can get caught up in this sort of behavior, and you, because you have this pressure to join the group, you will kind of give in to that temptation as well. Simon's head was tilted slightly up, his eyes could not break away, and the Lord of the Flies hung in space before him. "What are you doing out here all alone? Aren't you afraid of me?" Simon shook. "There isn't anyone to help you, only me, and I'm the beast." Okay, what do you make of that line right there? The fact that he says there isn't anyone to help you, only me, and I'm the beast. How is this like creature trying to terrify Simon? What tools is he using? Yeah, Whitney.
I think he's trying to isolate him from the group, or how his connections that he's created.
Yes, it does. Sorry, I just thought you were just going to say more to that. Yeah, so it's like isolating him by saying there isn't anyone to help you, only me. Allison?
He's using the group again by taking this fear they all had and like making it real.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this fear that they've been using to kind of regulate the group, right? Because they are afraid of the beast, the kids are doing certain things together to be a better group. So they want to build shelter because that will be shelter against the beast. They want to like hone hunting skills because that could be a way to fight against the beast, right? And he says, I am here, I am the beast, I am like fear made real. And because he says like, it's only me left, he's saying like, it's not going to be this tool of governing anymore. I am going to be the thing that it like undoes you. All right, Simon's mouth labored, brought forth audible words, pig's head on a stick. And he's like trying to like fight against this like supernatural quality that it has. Fancy thinking the beast was something you could hunt and kill, said the head. For a moment or two, the forest and all of the other appreciated places echoed with the parody of laughter. You knew, didn't you? I'm part of you. Close, close, close. I'm the reason why it's no go, why things are what they are. All right, what's the beast saying right there? What does he reveal?
No, he's like literally saying he's like a part of
Yeah, it's like, you are imagining this because I am already, I don't even think he's saying imagining, but like, I am already a part of you, so you cannot escape me at all. So like, if you want to go out there and kill the beast, like, it's not going to work. You can't kill like a part of your human nature.
Yeah, when I first read it, I felt like you knew, didn't you? It was like saying that the beast was individually each person. A
Yes.
little bit in their traits, and I was like, so when you were thinking, like you were saying, like you can't kill yourself unless that's what happens.
Right, right.
Someone murders you.
Right. And when he says I'm the reason why it's no go, what's it's there?
I feel like it's like rescue, almost like
Yeah.
getting off the island and being safe is
I like that. And even if it's not getting off the island, I like the being safe part too. I think you're right that it's no go is like there is no hope. That's what he's been talking about all along. I'm the beast. There's no one to help you. It's only me. It's like there's desperation. All that's left on this island is desperation and violence and no hope at all. Allison?
I feel like he says you knew, didn't you? And he's also asking all these questions like Simon was already.
Yeah, like he's the only one who's maybe had a little insight into the group dynamics, and whether that is because he's supposed to be this religious figure, as we talked about, like he's supposed to be their kind of moral compass when he's helping the kids, when he's like always sort of not the voice of reason, but like sitting outside and observing things. We know here that like he had some insight into the group behavior. And this is why when Simon dies, it is so tragic. I mean, it's obviously tragic because he's a little boy who is mauled by a group, but it's so tragic because they lose that moral compass too. So when he says like, when it says that the place echoed with the parody of laughter, that reminds me so much of Arendt, who talks about how authority can only be undercut with laughter. So it's like if the human had authority before, here is this instinctual, bestial, even like evil part of humanity that is laughing at the authority, the part that has authority, the part that can be governed, and it's laughing at it and saying like, that is not going to stand here. The laughter shivered again. Come now, said the Lord of Flies, get back to the others and we'll forget the whole thing. Simon's head wobbled. His eyes were half closed as though he were imitating the obscene thing on the stick. He knew that one of his times was coming on. The Lord of the Flies was expanding like a balloon. So that part, one of his times was coming on, suggests to me that he maybe has had seizures before. But it also reminds me, has anybody seen or read The Shining? No, okay, well that's good. It's not like necessarily high school appropriate, but there's a kid in it who's like got this connection to like dark things and has these like seizures as he like is about to see dark things. And the way that it says it here is not like medical. It's like he knew that one of his times was coming on, almost like he's had these insights before. Allison?
I think it has happened before because like the first introduction we get of him
Is him what?
passing out constantly.
Does he pass out at the beginning of the book?
When the choir walks up and he is like falls over.
That's right. That's right. Okay, good. I like that. So it's like it actually is medical here, but then it's got these supernatural sort of undertones to it as he is like hallucinating about this Lord of the Flies. It says the Lord of Flies was expanding like a balloon, which is a disgusting image. Like it's actually the pig's head on the stick covered in flies, right? That it's expanding like a balloon. This is ridiculous. You know perfectly well you'll only meet me down there, so don't try to escape. Simon's body was arched and stiff. The Lord of the Flies spoke in the voice of a schoolmaster. This has gone quite far enough. My poor misguided child, do you think you know better than I do? There was a pause. I'm warning you, I'm not going to get angry. Do you see? You're not wanted. Understand? We are going to have fun on this island. Understand? We are going to have fun on this island. So don't try it on, my poor misguided boy, or else. What do you notice about the way the beast is speaking in that little paragraph? What stands out to you?
Repetition is a really good way to make people to your point too.
Okay, good. So the beast is using rhetorical tools to actually like draw Simon into his side of things.
Speaking of which, is rhetoric just another way of saying like how you convince someone?
Yeah, it's just persuasive qualities. Yeah. Enoch?
It's like it says right before is like spoken the voice of a schoolmaster.
Yeah.
It really does sound like a schoolmaster. I think that's kind of it's like an authority over Israelite.
Right. Okay, good. So it's like if the human used to be authority, this is like a sign that the beast then has become the complete authority on the island, that it's taken over what the human could have represented. Yeah, Whitney. Oh, did you have your hand up before? Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So then one other thing I want to point out is that it turns into a we, not an I or a you. We are going to have fun. So it feels very clear who the beast is aligned with. It's like all the other boys, and the beast wants to like have this like reveling party with the other boys as they become violent too. Simon found he was looking into a vast mouth. There was blackness within, a blackness that spread. Why do you think the mouth could be an important physical quality there? It's not getting, sucked into the pig's eyes or his ears or anything. It's the mouth. Yeah, Ash.
Because the words are very powerful.
Okay, so it goes back to what Xander was saying about like the rhetoric becomes all encompassing, all powerful, and it's like you cannot escape the argument that the Lord of the Flies is making, which is that you are not wanted, you are alone, all the rest of us are going to have fun, and you can. So if you don't give in to what like your nature tells you to do, you're going to be completely left out of this group of humans. Yeah.
Maybe it means it more literally because they kill Simon right after they're feasting on the pigs. Maybe it's like
Yes.
literally it's becoming a part.
Yes, absolutely. There's this idea that the mouth is where we take in, I always get so gross, I know, but this is what I'm fascinated by. The mouth is where we take in like all of this extra stuff, all of the nourishment and whatever, and it becomes a part of you. So it's like, what once was pig and separate is now like a part of me for a little while. I'm taking in the nutrients or whatever. It's very like, it's where you consume things. Right? So the mouth becomes like a way that you can have power over other things because you can like actually make it become a part of you. So kind of makes sense. It's like, here I am, like okay, here's a good example. Somebody has, a phone number written down on a piece of paper or a little secret written down on a piece of paper in a sitcom, and someone comes over and they're like, give me that, I want to see that thing. And they crumple it up and eat it. So that it's like gone. You really have no access to that thing after it like enters the mouth. It's like you consuming that thing. And so the Lord of the Flies here is consuming Simon. It's like no one else is going, like you're not going to be a thing on your own anymore. You are going to be a part of me now. So that source of consumption is right there.
Wait, doesn't he die right after?
Yes, and he does. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it could also be like, if that's the nature of the boys, it's like he will be consumed
by the nature of the boys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this blackness, there was blackness within and a blackness that spread, which again is like that side of like no more hope. Or else, said the Lord of the Flies, we shall do you. See, Jack and Roger and Maurice and Robert and Bill and Peggy and Ralph, do you see? Do you see? Simon was inside the mouth. He fell down and lost consciousness. Okay, so what I want you to write down now on that piece of paper is I want you to have a thesis statement about what this little passage, how should I frame this one? How the conversation or the communication between the Lord of the Flies and Simon, what it reveals about human nature. What does the confrontation between the Lord of the Flies and Simon reveal about human nature? I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write a thesis and a little outline. Remember, your outline is based on your theme, so you're trying to like break it down. You need a piece of paper. Okay, ready? Go.
What chapter is that?
It's at the end of chapter 8. Okay. All right. How many of you got a thesis and a little outline? All right. Awesome. So here's what I want you to do now. I am going to give you 5 more minutes, and you are going to plan the textual details that you would include in each part of your outline. So if, for paragraph 1, you've got, okay, I got to prove this little bit in paragraph 1 about my theme, right? I want you to go here and find at least 1, but probably 2 little quotations that is going to help you prove that first part of the theme, right? So let's say I want to talk about his seizures. And I want to look at one of his times. Okay, I'm going to plan out that is something I am going to talk about, right? But then I'm going to plan out why it is significant. I'm going to say one of his times like suggests multiple times. And then his is like all about like his ownership of that thing. And so I'm going to talk about this being like a special ability. And then times is still vague. And so I want to talk about how this gives it a supernatural quality because he's not naming it as like, oh, this is one of my seizures. It's just one of my times. It feels like this connection to another world. So when you're planning out which textual details to include in each paragraph, I want you to kind of plan what you might say about that textual detail in each paragraph. So basically, I'm just giving you 5 more minutes to brainstorm what this essay would actually look like. Where did they go? I think I had them take it back. Yeah, you can use mine. Okay, 5 more minutes to plan that out. Go ahead. Okay, all right. I'm going to give you your essays now from last time. These. Center. Class. Alrighty. Okay, I remember there were a couple people that weren't here. So Tavia and Isaac weren't here, and then I gave Allison hers back early and Abby's back early because they were there for practice tests. Okay, so look through those comments that I gave you on those. I'll give you a second for that. And then we are going to look at some paragraphs that your fellow students wrote about this. Okay, I picked out paragraphs that I thought were pretty solid. I looked through the essays from this class and from my fifth period class, and I was trying to pick out good examples of some short passage paragraphs. We're going to just look at these though, and we're going to think about what works about them and what could even improve from the good paragraphs, because they're good paragraphs, but they're still first draft written in 40 minutes paragraphs, right? So there's always something to improve. So I want you to read through your paragraph, and I want you to write down a very specific thing that this paragraph does well. So when you're reading it, I don't want it to be like, oh, it flows well. I want you to say this sentence to this sentence has a nice transition, right? Or, oh, the word choice is good. No, find a word that works really well for conveying their idea. Yes.
Are we writing it on the same?
Yes, and write it right on that actual paragraph. You might recognize your own, but I have no idea whose is who at this point. I just copied them. Just one very specific thing that they do well. Another minute to write that one pass. Okay, and I should have thought about this one in possible. I want to make sure that this works, but we're gonna snake them, and this is small class, so watch. Octavia, you're gonna go backwards. Enoch, you're gonna go over to Xander, then we're gonna go forwards, and then over. We'll give it to Allie, and Allie will pass hers back. Whitney passes to Ash. Ash goes forward. Elise passes to Cecilia. Cecilia goes back, and then I will be the runner and take Allison over to our. Okay, but if on this side you start to get the same one, like this, was that the one you just had? Okay, good. All right. Now you're gonna do the same thing, but you can't write what the person ahead of you wrote. So I want you to write something different that this new paragraph does very well, different than what the person before you said. But for this one, think about, this might be helpful, might not, but think about if you're the teacher and you really want to help the student pass and you're noticing things that they do well that you want them to continue doing on the next essay. Comment on something that they do so well that they should apply to their next essay. Okay, another 30 seconds to write that, and we'll pass it in. Okay, go ahead and pass that again. Same direction. Okay, like I said, I pulled these out of the paragraphs that I thought were strong, so I want one more good comment on this. And you can't write what either of the two people ahead of you wrote. Try and hit some different area that they're doing well on. Oh, sorry, did I not grab Allison? Move it over. There we go. Okay, finish up that comment. All right, we're gonna pass it again. I will- Okay, so much positive feedback. I love it. Like I said, though, I think each of these paragraphs could improve in a couple ways. So for this one, give them one concrete way that they can improve their paragraph. So this time you're writing a concrete way they can improve their paragraph. You're trying to help this kid pass the test, or the teacher give them one thing that they can do next time they write their essay. Not the idea here. Flowing. Okay, pass one more time. Last pass. All right, one more thing that they can improve. You can't repeat what the person in front of you just said. Yeah, I did have two of a lot of them, so if you've seen one now for the second time, that's okay, you can still give feedback on what they can improve. many are you of you are done now? Giving that back. Okay, all right, now I'm gonna take these from you. If anyone recognized their own and wants to come get their feedback, they may. I should have marked down whose was whose. I forgot to do that. And I'm gonna have you look at your own essays now. Actually, no, let's look at the one AP gave us first. Okay, so by the way, I decided to turn this today into a short passage review day since we're kind of on that track, and then we'll start our poetry review days next time, so that you like, are really solid on short passage going into it, because poetry has a very similar set of rules for it. Okay, here is the one that AP released on their, well, I'm not gonna tell you which one. They always give us 3 essays, one high, one medium, one low. This is a prompt from a while ago, and so they were still on the 9-point rubric. So this essay scored out to 9, and it was less about getting points on it and more just like, well, you feel like this essay is a 6, or you feel like this essay is a 4, or whatever. It was more holistic that way. And I will read it out loud since it is a little bit messy of handwriting. As I am reading it, you just mark what is interesting to you. So like, as the teacher, you're in a rush, you can underline stuff that you would like to return to, or make very quick little marks about stuff that you see that could improve. Okay. In his novel, The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle, Tobias Smollett uses quick dialogue and a hurried narrative pace to demonstrate the conflict between Peregrine and Godfrey's heated anger and acting within social norms, revealing how society's rules governing behavior hinder and help people from acting on natural instincts. Through the contentious dialogue between Peregrine and Godfrey, Smollett reveals the will of the men to not go against social norms and lose themselves, showing how society tampers down the animal-like instinct of people to lash out during confrontations. During the dialogue, both men address each other properly as "sir," which Smollett repeats about 4 times to demonstrate the way this social norm of politeness interferes with the men's need to express their anger. Both men ultimately use the word "sir" ironically, for they do have, what does that say? Lost. Oh, for they have lost respect for each other. So Smollett satirizes their attachment to this traditional greeting as their anger becomes more apparent. Peregrine engages in this conversation, wishing to uphold his pride, and therefore mocks the other, right? Saying, "Gentleman, God, what? A very pretty gentleman, truly." About to lose his false yet polite demeanor, Peregrine repeats the word "gentleman," used to describe a man of honorable stature. Ironically, actually using this word to demean Godfrey. Through ironic remarks, Peregrine retains the false air of politeness while also expressing his obvious rage for his lover's brother. Instead of immediately attacking each other, both men express their mutual dislike through ironic dialogue, revealing society's ability to stifle some of humans' animal-like instincts. Also using a hurried narrative pace, Smollett uncovers the men's anger toward each other expressed through a socially acceptable sword fight, showing a socially appropriate manner of funneling innate fight or flight instincts. After Peregrine insults Godfrey, Godfrey reacts through violence. As the narrator notes, Godfrey, considered an indelible affront. He made no reply, but attacked his adversary with equal ferocity and address. The narrator's description includes many words in a long sentence, a strategy Smollett employs to mirror the long syntax with the buildup of emotions of the men. Godfrey reacts with no reply and immediately attacks Peregrine, following his instinct to succumb to his anger and lash out through sword fighting, thereby abiding by society's rules of how to express one's emotions. Smollett uses the word ferocity and an adversary to portray the animal qualities revealed in the two men's hostility for each other, influencing their need for violence. As Godfrey strikes Peregrine, the narrator recalls that Peregrine was transported with rage at the sight of his own blood. With the words rage and blood, Smollett further displays the animal imagery of this scene as two men violently attack each other through sword fight. Using animal imagery and a quickened, narrative pace, Smollett reveals how the two men unleash their violent instincts through a socially acceptable outlet, sword fight. Smollett uses various literary devices like dialogue and animal imagery to portray the manners by which society both tempers and funnels the raw emotions of Godfrey and Peregrine, acting as a barrier between humans' animal instincts and the facade of civilization. All right, talk with the groups you normally talk to. I want you guys to decide on our grading scale what this score would what this, I'm so having such a hard time, what this essay would score. And you can use 0.5s if you want to. So 1 through 6, what would this essay score, and decide why it would get that score.
Great dialogue, and then it's actually ironic. And then they were like, then they just talked about anger, but they didn't talk about anger in all of their pieces. And that's okay.
It demonstrates the conflict
Points I highlighted.
Perdine and Godfrey's
and
anger. Oh, okay. I was
And those are
anger is,
yeah.
yeah, then otherwise. Until the end, I guess, then they talk about like actual raw.
I think I'm
things,
looking
but
at
then
it for 5 pages.
otherwise, like this paragraph is.
Get a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Like you knew this was a mess.
What are we doing?
This is how.
I felt like they did good in each paragraph.
I would be a 5 or 6. If somebody like slots and.
Yeah, that's true.
This is for you.
Also, in the process, they said,
Half
quick
an
to
hour.
long and very
Literally watch
the same thing.
Really? Yes. This was that was the
Yeah, it is.
You know,
single-handedly reloading the fire shot.
That one lady was like,
It's like.
whenever I like.
Okay. Do you have a score for this essay? Everybody's got a score in mind? Okay, cool. What does the essay do well? Let's start there. There are a lot of things that it does well.
Gives you good context.
Okay, good context. What do you mean by that?
It explains a lot of like what's going on, so it isn't just so you know what the text is about. Which is
Good.
not
Okay, yeah, for these short passage essays, it's hard to balance that. I think in this one, it does a good job of giving you some context, but not just summarizing the entire passage, because you want to stay away from summary, but you still want your reader to know who is fighting who and why they're fighting who, you know? Yeah, Whitney.
It keeps the theme very prominent throughout, yes, you never really decide what is taking place.
Yes, and I would say that is one thing, prominent. That is one thing that we are still struggling with on these particular essays, is remembering that it is about a theme. So I want to just clarify. A theme is this kind of like generalized bit of truth. Like it's this little nugget of truth that you can find in the passage. And it's usually about humanity or about the human condition. So when you say something like, this passage shows that Peregrine Pickle is losing honor, would that count as a theme? No, it counts as a character description, something about our character, but it is not this generalized piece of truth about humanity. So in order to check whether or not your theme is actually a theme or whether it is just a description about a certain character, you say, could this be true for other texts? Like, could somebody take that theme and transfer it to another text and it could still be true of that other text, right? And if it's about Peregrine Pickle, then it's not going to be able to be true about other texts. Yes.
I think they had a really good intro because they pretty much summed up what they wanted to argue, and they had like
Yeah.
this, they correctly said this versus this, and then this versus this. It was like,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain because it's like this versus this in the passage, and then this versus this in humanity.
Oh, right. So what we like about it is parallelism of the thesis, that it goes like, what does it say? Like dialogue to narrative, dialogue to like narrative, like with the quick pace, right? And we've got anger to social rules, so that there's some nice like parallelism set up in the thesis. I would say this one needs, I'm saying I changed it to say the thesis is clear because this one needs an introduction. It has no intro, it just jumps into the thesis. And I didn't really, teach you about that. So just to be clear, an intro could even be one sentence, 1 to 3 sentences that set up your essay. And one way to do that is by setting up the theme. An even easier way to do that is by setting up the plot, just saying, here's what happens in this passage. Okay, now let me get to my thesis statement. It needs at least one other sentence there first. Ash,
I like the wording that they use.
where is a instance of when you like the wording?
Like on in the second paragraph towards the bottom, it says his false yet polite
Demeanor, his about to lose his false yet polite demeanor. I like that too. A lot of his sentences use word choice in a way that is doing a lot of work for them. Like it feels like they have a handle on language. That's what the AP graders will always say. It's like, oh, it feels like they have a sophistication with the language. Like Smollett satirizes their attachment to this traditional greeting. That's a good way of saying that, so the words are doing a lot of work for them. Yeah, good. So we'll say sophisticated word choice. What else do they do well? Allison?
they connect it to society.
Yeah, so that's a big part of what the theme is about here, right? And the prompt was asking you to do that, to show what their behavior is revealing about, humans' place in society and human society. So they do a really good job doing that throughout. Anything else that they do well? I like the way that they are quoting a lot, but not too much. I feel like they do a good job balancing the amount of quotes. I feel like they choose kind of short quotes to demonstrate certain things, and they're not trying to quote an entire passage, in their essay. So I think they do a good job balancing the length of the quotes. Okay, I know that students can always be a little more critical than praiseworthy, right? We can figure out, or not praiseworthy, praising. We can figure out what they need to do better. So what is some things they need to do better? Yeah.
They tack on a lot of buzzwords in like every single sentence so that this is an essay for the AP test.
Okay, give me an example.
So first one I would say in the very first paragraph, in his novel, The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle, Tobias Smollett uses quick dialogue and a hurried narrative pace to demonstrate the conflict between Peregrine and Godfrey's heated anger and acting within social norms, comma, revealing how society's rules governing behavior hinder and help people from acting unnaturally. There's like 6 buzzwords, and then he does that in the whole first paragraph.
Okay, feels awkward because it feels a little maybe formulaic. Yeah, it's like someone taught them how to write the formula, Now I would say this is like, a minor issue. because they are looking for you to do this really speedily. And so sometimes that's gonna like come across as like kind of bad writing, but if you hit all of the points, that's okay. Like if you are able to explain yourself well, then that would be okay to use some of these buzzwords, but I get it, it's not very pleasant to read. Isaac?
Mine's also pretty small, but in the first well, not the first paragraph, but like first body paragraph, it says, he repeats it about 4 times. And I was like, about 4 times just sounds like really vague. It's like, just say how many times it was or just leave it out altogether.
Okay, yeah, say many times or actually count.
Exactly.
Yeah, about 4
4
times. Unnecessarily broad or specific, but they do either one, they do each poorly. You get that, Ellison?
In the thesis, they say quick dialogue, but that's.
Okay, so they say they're going to talk about quickness in the thesis, but that transfers into ironic in the body paragraph. Now what if that happens to you? You are writing along, you wrote a thesis, you are writing your paper along, and you realize, oh, I'm talking about something else. What should you do, you think? Go back and change the, oh yeah, sorry, Enoch, was that what you were gonna say?
Change the intro. Like
Just change the intro, right? That happens to everybody. Sometimes I will write my thesis. Well, I never write my thesis last, but I definitely rewrite my thesis many times after rewriting the essay, because it happens. Like as you're developing ideas, your mind changes, right? Just go back. You'll be writing with pen, so just cross it out and change the words of it. You know? Yeah, Whitney.
It goes hand in hand, but like he kept like tacking on more and more literary devices that weren't in his thesis, to the point of like where there's almost too much evidence and not enough detail on it.
Okay, here's where it is. It's not necessarily like the detail is the right word, but I get it. We're feeling like it is too much evidence because what happens is it feels like he's listing quotations without the analysis. So I think at the beginning, his first body paragraph, he doesn't make that mistake. I think at the beginning, I don't know why I'm assuming this is the he, but at the beginning, he does a really good job describing why sir is important in the passage. And he talks about how it's ironic, how it is them sort of like holding back and so on. But when you get to the second body paragraph and he is listing all of these quotes and then he just says, see, it's animalistic. He never explains why those quotes should be seen as animalistic. So when he says something like ferocity or adversary to portray the animal qualities, I don't know why ferocity and adversary are animal qualities. This writer needs to spend like 3 sentences, explaining what ferocity means, what the connotations are, when we usually see the word ferocity, and so why we're bringing those connotations into this passage. Because I wouldn't describe them as animalistic. I don't know that that's a, obvious quality that they have. And that's a great thing. If you're finding something that's not obvious, you just have to do a lot to prove that it's there, right? So for every quote that you use, you need to balance it more with way more analysis than quotes, right? So you could have one paragraph where you're really focusing on 3 little quotes to show a pattern, 3 words that show like some tone to the passage, but then you're spending an entire paragraph explaining that. Yes.
Very repetitive.
Okay, yeah, where does that feel repetitive?
Well, he talks about rage a lot, and he repeats words like long. I don't know, it just
Yeah, and the reason that it feels repetitive is because he's repeating his thesis a lot, which is great. We feel like the theme is staying consistent. That is awesome, but he's not adding to the analysis of it. So it's like, oh, it's rage. That shows, that people are being held back by society. Oh, it's ferocity. That shows that people are being held back by society. Blood shows that people are being held back by society, right? So it feels like it's repeating over and over again. But what he could do is say, this is why rage is animalistic, and that's why that shows what's down deep inside him. And that's why when he sees blood, he behaves this way, like building on what that means. Yeah.
I think just with that, he says that it was a societally, socially acceptable sword fight. I think he said that like 2 times, but he doesn't say like why
Yep.
it's seen as his like what in the text proves that. Right?
Exactly, yes, he just kind of, he lets you sort of like assume things without fully explaining it. So the reason that I think it's a socially acceptable sword fight is because of the way that they help each other off with their boots. I thought that was the funniest part of the passage, that they're like, "Whoa, we're gonna sword fight," and then like you're imagining him being like, "I can't get my boot off, oh, let me help you," you know. Now we're gonna sword fight. So yeah, but he never points out like what makes it seem socially acceptable, the way that they're dueling. Yeah.
Why did they have to take their boots off to sword fight?
I didn't understand that.
Wear boots.
I wonder if they have like they're like galoshes or something, and they have little sneakers on underneath. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I was confused about it too. I was like, do you sword fight barefoot or yeah? All right. So ultimately, what score would you give this essay? Remember, it's a first draft. It's in a timed situation. It's not one that they've had weeks to prepare. So what score out of 6 would you give it? 4? 4? Hold up your fingers, actually, that works. Wait, but we can't do 0.5s. There we go, with a little half finger. 3.5. 4, 4, 4. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I would have probably given this a 4, 4.5. I think it's right there. I like the way that they use evidence. A big part of getting that score is having the theme and staying consistent with the theme. But you guys are totally right that it's not like sophisticated in their analysis. So on the 9-point scale, they gave it a 7. So high, you know, like, yeah, yes, you can do this. So this is what they said. This essay offers a sustained and competent reading of the interplay between emotion and social propriety in the passage. It claims, through the contentious dialogue between Peregrine and Godfrey, Smollett reveals the will of men to not go against social norms. This essay claims shows how society tampers down the animal-like instinct of people to lash out during confrontations. It's less perceptive in its supporting analysis. Perhaps overstates the tension between civilized and savage, but moves into a sustained paragraph that makes that claim reasonable by referencing diction. But again, with the animal imagery, doesn't show the analysis of the animal imagery. So it says, while the essay is not as well conceived overall as essays in the very top range of the scoring guide, it nevertheless presents a reasonable analysis of the excerpt with clarity and control. And that's why I got a 7. Wow, sassy. Okay, so keeping that in mind now, on your papers where you were working out the passage for Lord of the Flies, I want you to choose one paragraph from your essay, your Peregrine Pickle essay, and I want you to revise it on that same piece of paper. So flip the paper over, you probably have a whole new side to it, right? I want you to revise that paragraph and make it as good as it can be before the end of class. You need new paper too? Oh, question, Octavia.
Yeah, so since I did the text box, I don't think, can I like go back and see that, or is it gone?
I totally forgot that some of you guys have. Yes, come on, Dad. You know what I'm gonna have you do instead? I'm going to have you choose one of your Lord of the Flies paragraphs. Isaac, have you written your Peregrine Pickle essay yet? Okay, so instead I'm going to have you guys choose one of your body paragraphs for the Lord of the Flies fake essay that we're doing and revise that, or write out that paragraph. Does that work? So like one of your body paragraphs, not one of your intro paragraphs.
Can I bring this paper?
Yes. Yeah, Abby. Oh, okay. Will you do the same thing where you write one of the Lord of the Flies paragraphs then? It doesn't really matter which one you're doing. I just want to see that you're applying what we've been talking about today. Yes, and if one of these paragraphs are yours, you can come grab it.